A new era of Monday Night Raw is upon us. Obviously, for the better part of 3 decades, Monday Night Raw has been emanating from television, obviously from the USA Network for the majority of its time, but now, this upcoming Monday, it'll be airing from Netflix. A new era indeed. So for this week's Friday 5 count, I thought, why not go ahead and share 5 of my all-time favorite moments on Monday Night Raw. Real quick before we begin the list, 2024 was such a huge, a monumental year for us here on YouTube. It would not be possible without each and every one of you. So here's to 2025 and hoping to continue the growth of the J area as well as the YouTube channel itself. If you haven't subscribed to the channel just yet, please consider doing so because 2025 is going to be even bigger than 2024. Now with that being said, let's jump right into the list. The legacy of Monday Night Raw has been built upon memorable moments that really left us in shock and awe, but a lot of moments were kind of feel good and made us feel a certain type of way as professional wrestling fans. So for me, at number 5, I have to put the January 4th, 1999 edition of Monday Night Raw, where Mick Foley, aka Mankind, aka Cactus Jack, Dude Love, you know him, you love him, when he won the WWE Championship, defeating The Rock. This was a moment in time. A lot of people point to this as kind of the shift in the Monday Night Wars. It's a very infamous moment during the wars as Tony Schiavone on the broadcast of Monday Night Nitro openly criticized, albeit he was probably directed by someone like an Eric Bischoff to say so, but he criticized Mick Foley by saying, hey, we're going to give you the results to the other show. You want to watch Monday Night Raw? They're going to be having their world championship be placed on Mick Foley. And with a disgusted tone in his voice, he said, that sure puts some butts in some seats. And just the overall story of it really just, it touches me, because Mick Foley, who hasn't been considered to be one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, but his impact is felt nonetheless. The amount of punishment that he was able to endure throughout the course of his career, to have a memorable moment against The Rock on this episode of Monday Night Raw. And when people heard that he was going to win the title, rather than stay away from the channel and not watch the show, everyone tuned in. It certainly was a fantastic example of what the Attitude Era really was. Of course, with a bunch of interference, Stone Cold Steve Austin making the run in, but the post-match celebration as well as the speech that Mick Foley provides following his championship win, it's really one of the highlights of professional wrestling, and I feel like it should go down as one of the best examples of how pro wrestling can truly be magical. At number 4, I have the split of the Shield. This was obviously back in June of 2014, and at that time, I don't think we realized just how significant this moment was going to end up being. The Shield was one of the most dominant trios in WWE history. Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins, and Roman Reigns. They completely ran roughshod over the WWE roster, and then following their feud, their matchup with Evolution, we see Seth Rollins with this shocking attack, planting the chair into the back of Roman Reigns, and the shocked expression of Dean Ambrose. This moment is responsible for very much a lot of the stories that are being told in the WWE to this point. The whole Bloodline saga could be traced back to this moment, as it's when Roman Reigns developed this level of paranoia and trust issues with those around him. He needed to be in control. He needed to constantly be the one running the show. And in retrospect, you look at the way that these stars are presented nowadays. I mean, Jon Moxley, aka Dean Ambrose, is the AEW champion as of right now, as of this recording. Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns, top stars in the business. The Shield will go down as one of the biggest and greatest trios of all time, and this was the moment that it all came to an end. At number 3, we have a very personal favorite of mine, but I have it at number 3. It was June of 2011 when CM Punk made the pipe bomb. I mean, what a moment in time. It was a perfect blend of kayfabe and a shoot interview. CM Punk and what he was saying in this promo really resonates to this day. I can remember going all the way back in 2011 and watching this in my living room, and just when the show seemed like it was about to reach its conclusion, I was getting ready to turn the TV off and head to bed. But then I realized that Punk was still kind of lingering around ringside. He got a microphone, he sat down at the top of the ramp, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, this isn't over yet. So what's going to happen? And CM Punk begins to cut one of the greatest promos of all time, solidifying himself truly as one of, if not the best in the world. And to go on and to have, this great moment where he talked about the influence that Vince McMahon has had on the company, as well as The Rock and John Cena, mentioning names like Paul Heyman and Brock Lesnar, shout-outing to Colt Cabana, Ring of Honor, New Japan. This was really the turn of how the current status of professional wrestling really is to this day. CM Punk, a trendsetter, and then on top of that, the lead into the Money in the Bank matchup all starts here with this promo. I think it's one of the greatest promos of all time. He is my second favorite pro wrestler of all time, and this is one of the greatest moments I've ever seen live as a fan, so I have it here at number 3. So real quick, as a disclaimer, number 2 and number 1, I technically wasn't watching live as a fan, but going back and watching the previous episodes of Monday Night Raw, learning the history of the WWE, I feel like these two have a reasonable solidification to be here on this list. So at number 2, I have April of 1998, which ironically enough was the month I was born. DX, D-Generation X, invades WCW. I look at the WWE in the Attitude Era, and it's really one of the greatest times of all time. I mean, you had chaotic television, storytelling, and just the stars that were involved. Every week something big was happening. So when DX, which was Triple H, China, X-Pac, and the New Age Outlaws at this point, got in their Jeep, decked out in camouflage, and were threatening to go to the Norfolk Scope where WCW had their Nitro episode being aired, and then threatening to go through the garage and talking to the fans and having them chant for DX and boo Eric Bischoff and Nitro. Truly a moment in time that I wish I could have seen live. I mean, the chaotic energy that DX brought is certainly one that will live to this day, and I think it's one of the greatest moments that Monday Night Raw has ever seen. But of course, at number 1, I feel like you had to go with something that really captured the spirit of Monday Night Raw. And Monday Night Raw is well known for the Attitude Era, and one of the greatest feuds of all time was Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Mr. McMahon. And I could have chosen from a lot of options here. There were so many moments between the two, but I have to go to the one that I never get tired of. Every time it's shown, whether it's on Twitter, on TV, on YouTube, I have to sit down and rewatch it time and time again. It was October of 1998. Mr. McMahon had suffered an injury and was placed in the hospital. I think you guys know where I'm going with this. And he was expecting Stone Cold to make an attack at some point, but this was when Mr. McMahon was encountered by Mankind, who brought out Yerples the Clown, and it was the introduction of Mr. Sacco. But the real moment for me was when the nurse is speaking to Mr. McMahon and says, "Hey, everything's looking good. What do you think, doctor?" And you hear Austin's voice says, "I'll take it from here, nurse," and proceeds to beat the ever-loving crap out of Mr. McMahon. And then the classic spot where he beats up his ankle that's already wrapped up in bandages, and then he gets the pan, I believe it was, and bangs it up against Mr. McMahon's head, and it just delivers a sound that still rings out all these years later. I think it's the perfect example of what their rivalry stood for, and it really is one of the funniest and most entertaining moments the WWE has ever provided. But I would love to hear from you guys, and hear in the comments, what were some of your favorite all-time moments on Monday Night Raw? Are you looking forward to the move to Netflix as much as I am? Please sound off in the comments below. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up, and make sure to subscribe to the channel in order to stay up to date with all of the content that we're producing here in 2025. Pro wrestling has never been bigger, and so will the J Area Wrestling channel. Of course, if you haven't already too, consider joining the memberships where you can get exclusive content like members-only live streams, videos, and shorts. Like I said, my name is Ramos Jr. It's going to be a big year here in 2025, and I hope that you will all be along for the ride.